Hey guys, it's Kevin, and this is me, another classic movie review for you guys. Now, this movie I'm going to be reviewing, I actually wasn't planning on watching this at all this year. Or at all, really. I never really had interest in this, but I was looking on Turner Classic Movies, saw that this was on there, and figured I really want to watch it for several reasons, and I've actually been interested in this film for a little while now. I've forgotten about it, I just really didn't, I guess I just didn't really think about it, but I figured I would watch it. That's also the case with the other classic, the next classic movie I'm going to be reviewing as well. But that movie that I'm going to be reviewing is the 1962 drama thriller classic Lolita. Yes, Lolita. I've wanted to see this movie for a while now for quite a few reasons. Probably after American Beauty, definitely. I mean, American Beauty, a lot of people say, is very similar to Lolita. To a degree, I would say that, but they're not that similar. They're very different, in my opinion. And also, Lolita is a very controversial movie. It came out in the 1960s, but it's a very controversial story. And, with all of that, with the story that it has, does it all work in the end? Yes. Lolita is another masterpiece from Stanley Kubrick. And honestly, is something that I think it's honestly one of his more impressive films because it's something that you really don't get to see in his other movies. I mean, he had a lot of restrictions with this movie, but that did not stop him from making an amazing movie. It really didn't. Let's get to the plot of this movie, which is pretty straightforward. I'm sure you guys know a plot to Lolita. Again, it's really straightforward. We focus on this guy, Humbert. I'm not kidding, that's his name. They even make fun of it in the movie. But he basically is this, he's just gotten divorced from his wife, basically. He's just gotten divorced, and he is arriving in America to find a new position, to be at this college, basically. And he's just looking for a room to rent, and basically he stumbles upon this woman, Charlotte Hayes, who you can tell right away she's very frustrated with herself. She pretty much just likes to really just wants to be with Humbert and is kind of lonely. And she invites him to stay at her house, which he plans to just, stay for the night. And he doesn't want to do that until he sees her daughter, Lolita, or as, her real name, Dolores, or as everyone else calls her, Lolita. And he ultimately just ends up infatuated with her. He falls in love with her, and basically the rest of the movie is him doing whatever he has to do to be with her, fall in love with her, and basically just let himself be with her, to do whatever he can to be with her. And Lolita is also 14. The problem is, though, Lolita is 14 years old and he's like 40 something, and that's basically a plot of Lolita. So yeah, it's a very interesting plot. It's a very controversial plot. It was based off a book that was very controversial. And the thing is, it was 1962. They had a lot of restrictions back then. It's actually very fascinating to me about this movie because, again, it was 1962. It didn't seem like the time to make a film like that. Like, I wouldn't say 1962 was the decade to make this kind of film. It really wasn't. I mean, 70s, 80s maybe, but 60s, not really. I mean, this was still when black and white was there. There were a lot of restrictions to film, and this wasn't even the late 60s when things were starting to change. This was back when, no, you had, like, black and white film. You could only show certain stuff, and they were very concerned with this movie, but I gotta say, they really did in a very good way, because everything about this movie is very subtle, and that's something I think is very good. Right away, the acting, I think, is one of by far the best things about this movie. I think the acting to this movie is just phenomenal. Everyone does a great job. James Mason gives what I think is the best performance of his career. From what I've seen 3 of his movies, A Star is Born, North by Northwest, and now Lolita. Lolita is by far the best role I've seen from him. I mean, just his character is so fascinating. I mean, you can't help but think, why the hell does he have a crush on, why is he, infatuated by a 14-year-old? Like, what about him is infatuated by her? The thing I love about his character, though, is that he's one of those characters that, no, he's not a very likable guy. I mean, he's very controlling. He's not a very nice guy. He pretty much is just there to get this girl, and he kind of is a pedophile, but in many ways he's not, because he kind of represents just someone who's willing to do whatever they can to get what they want, and that's what he wants. He wants Lolita. He wants to be with her. He wants to do whatever he can to be with her, and just what he has to do in this movie, it gets pretty fucking insane with his character. I mean, there's even a part of the movie where they start to call him a psychotic. I would honestly agree with what he was doing. He did some pretty crazy things just to be with Lolita. But again, he was very rational. He, was not your typical main character. But that's something I love about Stanley Kubrick, is that he doesn't give you the nicest, like, he doesn't always give you characters that are good or bad guys. They're definitely more than just black and white. There's more to them than that. Like Alex DeLarge in A Clockwork Orange, or Jack from The Shining. The characters like that, they're very complex characters and they're not exactly likable. Humpert is one of those people. He's not very likable, but I think James Mason did a fantastic job, and he really did a great job portraying that role. Shelley Winters as Charlotte, I really liked her as well. She's not in the movie as much as you may think, but she actually provides a lot of humor to the movie, which was really good. But she's also a very depressing character, because you see how lonely she is. She even says in the movie, there's a part in the movie where she's basically just doing whatever she can to flirt with Humpert. That's why she wants him there. She flirts with men. You can tell she does this on a daily basis. She wants to be with someone. She's widowed, and there's even a part in the movie where she's like, "Come with me, I'm lonely," and it's really sad stuff. I mean, you can see how lonely she is. She just wants someone in her life to love her, and it's really sad stuff, but she's also very funny at the same time. But then there's a part where you don't know if you should laugh or not at what she's doing, but you just love her character because you see the real drama she's going through. I mean, let's face it, she probably has the worst life out of anyone in this movie. Like, Humpert, yeah, he got divorced. He's looking for a place to live. Big whoop. Wow, your life is so complicated. She's lost a lot. She has a daughter who doesn't respect her very well, and she doesn't really understand their daughter's growing up, and she's really kind of just lost with her life, and it's really sad to see, and I definitely really love the better character. She did a great job. Sue Lyon, as well as Lolita, is amazing in this movie. Some people say she's way too subtle, but I thought she did a fantastic job. The thing I really love about her character, they wanted to, originally Lolita is 12 in the book, okay? Basically, she's 12 in the book. That would be illegal. If they were to do that in 1962, it would be illegal. So they obviously couldn't do that. It'd be illegal for that story to happen. So they were forced to change it to a 14-year-old, and I think it worked out really well. I think she did a great job in this role. First of all, she looks young. She was 14, and she did a great job, I have to say. I mean, something about Lolita's characters is she doesn't like Humpert like he likes her. In fact, if anything, she's creeped out by him. Like, she just sees him as a father figure, and he gets obsessed with her, and the more obsessed he gets with her, the crazier the story becomes, and I thought that was pretty incredible the way they handled her character. There's so many great twists with her character that I really do want to get into, but she did an amazing job, and I really loved her character in the movie. She was fantastic, I have to say. The chemistry between those two is great, really. There's so many great scenes with them, and she just handled everything perfectly. And then Peter Sellers as Claire Quilty. I don't want to spoil what happens with his character, but he was incredible in the movie, and he's a very mysterious character, but he is a fantastic character, and he did an amazing job in the movie as well. Everyone else was great. Everyone really gives amazing performance in this movie. I didn't really think anyone was bad, and pretty much everyone just did a great job. Now, the directing by Stanley Kubrick is very fascinating to me, because if you've seen any of Stanley Kubrick's films, you know a few things. One, he likes to push boundaries when it comes to film ratings. Like, most of his films are rated R, but they're very close to NC-17. Examples: A Clockwork Orange, Eyes Wide Shut. Watch both of those movies, you'll see why. A Clockwork Orange was rated X when it first came out. That should tell you something. Eyes Wide Shut was NC-17. Like, he pushes a lot of boundaries. Lolita, however, he really had so many restrictions, and it's very fascinating because you look at the films he's known for, and then you look at this film, and it's so different. At times, it feels like an Alfred Hitchcock movie because of how simple it is, and that's something I thought was really good with Stanley Kubrick. It's actually not as weird as you may think. You might think this movie's weird. What I like that Stanley Kubrick did, though, is he directed it in a very good way. He directed in a very subtle way. He knew the story would be controversial, so he did in a way where he could do his style of directing, but without, he had to, know that there were restrictions, and he had to do whatever he could to not let those restrictions ruin the movie, and he actually did a really good job with that. I think he did a really great job of the directing that was really good. However, the best part of this movie by far is the screenplay. Something I think is fantastic that Stanley Kubrick did is he let the author of the book collaborate with him on the screenplay, which is probably the best thing he could have done. Because if they wouldn't have collaborated on the screenplay, the movie would definitely not have been nearly as good as it was. And I'm very happy that they made a very collaborative process because it worked out really well. I mean, it's such a subtle movie. There are little sprinkles of humor, and it's not very like funny. Like, it's not funny, like, in your face funny. It's just there's little sprinkles throughout the movie. There were times where I was laughing. I loved how slow paced the movie was as well. The directions the movie go in, you don't know where the movie's gonna go, especially and after the first hour when something happens that I don't want to talk about because I feel like it's one of the biggest, it ruins the entire movie if you find out about it, which I pretty much knew nothing going into this movie. I knew it was about a guy, he had a crush on a 14-year-old girl, and that's it. That's all I knew. That's literally all I knew, and that was directed by Stanley Kubrick. And this was really the movie that put Stanley Kubrick on the map, I forgot to say. He had done other movies, but he wasn't really proud of them. He did one movie called Fear and Desire, which he wasn't at all proud of, and, like, it's an hour and 10 minutes long, and then he did some war films, but this was really, like, the first big film he did that really put him on the map in terms of being one of the best directors of all time, and I think that's fantastic. But the screenplay here is just so good. The dialogue between the characters is so great. The story is so compelling, and that's because the way they handle this story. Something about Lolita's character is they make you see her as Humpert sees her. Humpert doesn't love Lolita, okay? People have said this, oh, he loves Lolita. No, he does not love Lolita. He loves the idea of her. He loves having a woman in his life that he's close to. He likes having he likes having something in his life, and that's really what it seemed like to me, that he doesn't really love her. He just loves the presence of her and things like that. He doesn't really love her as a person, which I thought was definitely very interesting. And also, the movie gets you to relate a lot to the characters because of the fact that the movie is really about the wants and needs of this one character. It's all about Humpert's needs, and we all have one thing that we want and we'll do anything to get, and that's something that I think the movie does very well. I mean, he does whatever he can just to be with Lolita, and just like we as humans do, we try to do whatever we can just to have this one thing happen, and no matter what it is, if it's the most ridiculous thing, we still do that, and I think that's really well done, the way the movie got you to relate to that. It's something I think is really great in the movie. One of the reasons the movie's called Lolita as well is because he doesn't see her as she actually is. He sees her as Lolita, this flirtatious girl, this 14-year-old girl who is innocent and doesn't really understand flirting, when really she does understand flirting, and she does understand what he's doing, and she's a lot smarter than he thinks she is. Some of my favorite scenes in the movie by far are scenes where he starts to find out a lot more about her and realize how different she is. That's something I thought was really great in the movie, and I really love that. Cinematography, not much to say. It is a Stanley Kubrick movie. You'd expect there to be a lot to say, but there's actually not, because, again, this was black and white, and there were a lot of limitations. It was pretty simple, though. That's one of the things I love this movie, is how simple it was. I mean, again, it felt like an Alfred Hitchcock movie, because I've said before, his plots are very simple. Stanley Kubrick's plots are never simple. They take, like, 2 minutes to describe, and this takes, like, a minute. So I liked how simple the story was, and that's something I thought was really great. The score was beautiful. The opening score to this movie, I was hooked from that opening score. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna fucking love this movie. I mean, one of the best scores, I think, ever. It's so beautiful. I love the score of this movie, honestly. And it's a score that I probably recognize. Like, if you were to play the score of Lolita, I'd recognize it. It's a beautiful score. I really do love it. It's not in the movie a lot, but when it's in it, it's very powerful. You get the same feeling each time, and that's something I think is great with the score, the way it does that. That's something a score should do. The editing as well. The movie flew by for me. It's 2 hours, and it's like 2 hours and 27 minutes, 152 minutes, but it goes by so fast because I was so into the story and so into the characters and so into what was going on in the movie. I mean, at no point did I feel bored. I was into it the whole time, and I really was loving everything that was happening, I have to say. I mean, especially toward the ending, holy shit, the last, I'd say, 27 minutes of this movie, one of the most, like, intense climaxes I've seen in a very long time, and that was awesome. I really love that. Something else I really love about the movie is that a lot of the ending of the movie is the consequences. Now I really do want to get into spoilers, but before I do say that, I do want to get into some accolades, because I do believe the movie got some accolades. And also, I forgot to say, the book, if you read the book of Lolita, which I haven't, it's very, very different from the movie. I mean, they had to change a lot of things, like Lolita's feelings towards, Humphrey. I mean, in the book, definitely, you can tell that she does like him. I believe they actually do start something. I feel like that's really I think that's really what happened in the book, but they had to change in the movie because it just wasn't right. It wasn't something that was legal. It was wrong. I mean, movies were different back then. You had a lot of limitations. It's very strange. Like, you could do really over the top violence, but you couldn't show any nudity. It's weird, guys. I don't understand it. I mean, yeah, she's 14, but I'm just talking about women in like any sex or anything like that in general. You had to be very subtle about it, and that's something I think worked really well in the film, though, was how subtle it was with those things. I mean, it very subtly talks about feelings, things like that. It doesn't do it in a way that shoves it down your throat, and that's one of the reasons why I think the movie is as good as it is. Now, the movie did get a few accolades. It didn't win anything, except Sue Lyon did get Promising Newcomer for Golden Globe Awards, which I definitely feel she did deserve. And I'm happy that it did get what it got. It didn't get any Oscars, surprisingly. I think it's one of the few... It's one of the few films that, didn't get... It's one of the few films that I don't think got a, what do you call it? An Oscar. I think it's one of the few Stanley Kubrick films that didn't, because there are many that did, such as... Well, some of them were hated back then. I mean, there weren't many that did, but, like, Eyes Wide Shut, Eyes Wide Shut got a lot. I'm trying to think of... I don't think there were a lot, but I don't know what I'm saying. Yeah, if you guys want to know, like, how controversial this movie was, I mean, this film was rated X once, and it's not even that bad. Like, there's no language or anything. There's barely any sexual stuff. It's just there is some flirting. That's really all it is, but it's so fascinating how different the time period was then. But now let's get into the spoilers, which, if you have not seen Lolita, don't watch the rest of this review, because these spoilers are major. They ruin the movie, and I really want to get into it. So the movie really got going for me. I did not know anything. Remember, guys, I didn't know anything. When Charlotte killed herself, I was like, holy shit, I did not expect to happen an hour into the movie. Like, if you would have asked me, okay, when do you think Charlotte's gonna die? I knew she was gonna die probably eventually, but I was thinking, okay, maybe like an hour, 27 minutes. Not an hour into the movie. Like, that was... Wow, I give the movie props for doing that. Like, especially a movie from 1962, I give it props for going that far. That was awesome, and the movie just got so much better for that, because then, of course, Humbert has to hide the fact from Lolita that, oh, your mother's dead, and it's very disturbing stuff, because then he gets obsessed with her, and you start to realize that Lolita doesn't really like him in that way. She just sees him as, she just sees him as her father figure. That's all she sees him as, because, of course, he married Charlotte just to get closer to her, and I thought that was definitely something that was very interesting. And, of course, I'm happy that he did eventually tell her, but he probably only told her because he didn't want her to be affected by it. And then, of course, the movie gets crazy when he sends her to that high school and tells her, oh, don't interact with any boys or anything, and he starts becoming very overprotective, and, you can definitely tell that it's definitely... you can definitely tell that people are starting to wonder what's going on with them, because things are much different than the typical father and daughter, which I think is definitely very interesting. And then, of course, he attends the performance of the play, and he learns that she's been lying about her Saturday afternoons, probably because she was freaked out by him, and they get into this, basically he realizes that she wasn't at this piano practice. She was with this guy that she really liked this whole time, and I thought that was a really great reveal. The movie, I thought, was amazing, though, after he realizes that she just left the hospital and she wasn't there, so she's gone, and then we realize that that guy, Dr. Zemp, was actually Claire Quilty, and that was the man that was following them, who, of course, her mother had an affair with, and she continued that affair, and then basically married this guy, and basically she has a great life, and she got away from Humpert, but it basically drives Humpert to... I thought Humpert was going to kill himself, but then, of course, the beginning of the movie. Now, what I thought was going to happen is that he shoots quilty, and then he kills himself. But that's not what happened. He got like coronary thrombosis, which you knew he was gonna die when he just was going like, oh yeah, there's nothing wrong with me. Yeah, you're coughing like very heavily. Obviously, there's something wrong with you. You could tell, but yeah, I thought that was definitely very interesting. I really liked that, and the ending I thought was awesome. The way they ended it with her basically getting the best life possible, and him basically just losing everything. I mean, you knew the movie wasn't gonna end happily. You knew that. I mean, how can a guy? That's something I think that's so great about the movies. How it doesn't end happily. I mean, if this was like a Lifetime movie, this would end with, oh, they both end up together. No, she doesn't like him. She wants nothing to do with him. She never really liked him. She probably only flirted with him because she was starting to understand flirtation and things like that. She was starting to understand her body, and you could tell that was starting to go on. That's something that I thought was really good in the movies, that you can tell she never really had feelings for him. Maybe she flirted with him here and there, but I don't ever think Lolita ever, like, legit had feelings for him. I think she cared for him. I think she saw him as a father figure, but never a boyfriend, never a husband, not the infatuation that he had for her. That's personally how I felt about her. But overall, guys, if my review Lolita, hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys saw of this movie. You have seen it. Please see this movie. It is one of Stanley Kubrick's best by far. I think again, it's really the first movie that put him on the map in terms of being a fantastic director, and definitely check it out. It's a great movie. It really gets into the idea, as I said, of, wants and needs and things like that, which I think is definitely very interesting. And it's a very controversial movie, but it's great that it turned out as well as it did. There was a remake, but I heard it's not as good because it basically just shows you everything, and this does things very subtly, and that's something I think is very good about this movie. And I mean, you can even see like how controversial this movie was. The tagline of this movie is "How'd they ever make a movie of Lolita?" I mean, it is pretty incredible that they did in 1962, but they did it, and it was fantastic, and it's a masterpiece. And of course, it does get a 5 out of 5 or an A plus. I love Lolita; it's a great movie. And that's basically my review. Hope you guys enjoy it. I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for another classic movie review, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.